welcome back to Jacqs. Thanks for joining me today for another design team project for Country Craft Creations. In today's project, I'll be using a Mother's Love collection exclusive to Country Craft Creations. All supplies will be linked in the description box below. Now on to the project. So here is what I have created. This is my flag mini album, and really it should be called Photo Flag or just Photo Mini Album, because this thing can hold up to, if not more than 50 photos. Isn't that crazy? This little album can hold that much. And it's so nice. I love the size of this. I'll probably be making another regular mini album in this size. I'm just loving it. It's like a traveler's notebook. It's 4.5 by 8.5 inches tall. And it's got about 7/8 of an inch wide spine that actually expands out, and you'll see about that in a moment. Here is the back side. I did some layering with burgundy artisan cardstock, and then the paper collection, A Mother's Love. I used the 8x8 collection mainly. On the inside though, I used at least one 12x12 pattern paper from the collection. I had both 8x8 and 12x12 collections. But on the front here, what I have done is some layering with the elements from the paper collection. We had some ephemera pieces here that I layered onto burgundy artisan cardstock. Throughout the album, you'll see that cardstock. And then I used the white cardstock here is My Colors Polar Bear. It's really nice. It has a nice shimmer side on one side and then matte on the other. Now, if I was to recreate this project, I probably wouldn't use that duo tone of a cardstock. I would have just used a solid color cardstock on both sides. And I talk about that in the tutorial that's coming up. So I hope you can stick around for that. But also on the front, I cut apart some of these images from the paper collection here and then matted that and made this into a pocket, which I then layered these elements on top of with a flower from my stash. Tucked in here is a little tag that I created with just some of the paper collection. Added an eyelet there, and you have a nice room for a photo here on the back. You could actually put more than one image behind here, so you have plenty of room to tuck things. One of the favorite things that I did here was use the new to Country Craft Creations online and in-person store, the EK Success Embroidery Punch. Now, I've had this in my stash for a long time, and I love using it. It's a gorgeous punch. And I actually started using this when they put a notice out on the Facebook group that this was a new item to the store. So I thought that was perfect timing for me and them so that I could show you how to use that. And I talk about several different ways of using it and some tips in using it throughout the tutorial. So here you can see I used it to create like these little ruffle layers, and it's just so adorable. I love having this image of the girl and then these little ruffles. It's so cute. Love it, love it, love it. The closure on this album is a ribbon closure, and this will expand with the album as well. We attach it in a strategic way so that the ribbon expands along with the album when we open it. So let's go inside here. So I just want to go over the front a little bit before we actually do the reveal of the flag album. So we have a long side pocket on the front inside cover. And in here we have a large tag. This is 3.5 by 7.25. This is from the 12x12 paper collection. I just kind of cut out that image. I layered it on some pattern paper in the back. And then when you open it up, I used the other side of this image here to create the image, but I stood it up on the end and turned it into a little tuck spot. Added a little 2x6 tag here, just, you know, remnants of the paper that I had. So you could do journaling in here, add photos, and then you can also add photos to the back side of this. This is some burgundy seam binding from Country Craft Creation as well. And then that tucks down in there. Now let's flip to the back inside cover so I can show you that, and then we'll go into the pages. So on the back here, I added one of the elements from the 12 by 12, I think. This could be from the 8 by 8, I'm not sure. But I made this into a pocket so you could tuck something down in there. And then I actually cut part of the punch off to go underneath there. And I talk about how to do that in the tutorial as well. And then behind that, we have a nice large pocket. And this tag measures 3¼ and I started out at 7½. I talk about how I made this as well, but you can see I used the punch here down at the bottom. Great place for a photo here and even on the back side. And the print is light enough you could use just a regular pen to do some journaling on the back here if you wanted, but that's how that looks. So I'm going to go back to the front. We have 8 pages in this album. They have 3 segments on each page. To look at each page, you can just flip through the album like this, or you can put your hand on the front cover and the back cover and then expand it out. Then you get this lovely flipping motion of these photo mats, and that's what the pages are. These 3 segments are all photo mats. There are 24 on the front, 24 on the back. And the way that I've done this is instead of matting each of these pages individually, because I didn't know if this was going to be a gift or if I was going to use or sell or what, I matted the visible page on the front, and then all the ones thereafter, I cut little segments and made them into a pocket. So you actually could tuck items in there, you could tuck a photo in there, or you can just remove this element because I used repositional adhesive. So then that's where you would end up getting 48 photos just by the pages alone if you do front and back photos. That is so many photos. Like, this would be great to use for a specific occasion or an event when you had lots of photos. It would be perfect for that. Now to close this up, you see that the ribbon has kind of pulled out on the back side. All you do is take your strands and pull them out, and then it ends up bringing it to a close. And then you just tie it up and you are good to go. How cute is that? I love it. It's such a fun little album and lots of interaction. And as an added bonus, what I have done is created Cricut files for you, because actually I created them for myself when I created this album. So I'm going to go ahead and make that file available to all of you. I'll have the link down in the description box. If there is enough interest to have SVG files created, I can do that for you as well. Just let me know in the comments below. I hope that you will give this a try and can stay around for the tutorial. But if you can't, thank you for joining me this far. And please let me know what you think about the album in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And for those that can stay, let's get started. Before we actually dive into all the details in making this project, I wanted to go over some of the supplies I'll be using. First is the A Mother's Love exclusive paper collection to Country Craft Creations. This is an 8 by 8 collection, and I specifically made this project to fit those size papers. I really wanted to hone in on giving you something that you could use for those 8 by 8s. So I used this throughout the project. You'll need some lightweight chipboard, or you can use medium weight chipboard, but I just didn't think for this type of project you really needed that heavyweight chipboard. So that you can decide on your own. I used My Colors Polar Bear cardstock. I love this one. It's got a nice shimmer to it, and it's super, super pretty and nice and white. I also use Artisan Burgundy cardstock. This is like one of my favorite colors in the line. And of course, you can see I need to order more. I use it so much. So those are the main components. Now I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this punch that I'm using. This is EK Success Embroidery Punch. And I love this one because it punches nice and deep into the page. And this area alone, where the embroidery lace part is cut out, is about a little over 1 1/8 inches wide. And if you try to figure out your paper sizes when you're working on a project and using this wide of a punch, it's good to know how deep it punches into the paper. So here what I've done is just made a little sample for you. So this paper is 2 3/4 inches wide, and when you use the punch to punch into the paper, it goes in about 1 1/4 inches deep. So that should help you when you go to create other projects using the punch. As long as you know how deep it punches into the paper, you're able to figure out the size that you actually need. So I just wanted to provide that little helpful tip for you in regards to this punch. I will link this down below. They just got these in. I didn't even know they were doing that, and I decided to use this punch. So that was such good timing. I'm using some seam binding from Country Craft Creations and one flower, but I actually took this out of my stash. I don't have a lot of flowers because I don't really use them. I'm also going to be using some ribbon that I got from Country Craft Creations. I'm going to use what I have left of this, and it's about 32 to 36 inches. The rest of the supplies are your basics. So now let me go through the cover for this mini album. For the cover, you're going to need 2 pieces of lightweight chipboard if you're following it the way that I created it. These should be 4.5 by 8.5. And as you see, I already have mine wrapped. Since I did my lay flat cover video, I will be referring you to that video in all of my videos where I use that type of wrapping or that type of cover for my mini albums. So for the wrap, you're going to need 2 pieces of color cardstock, and I use the My Colors Polar Bear here, and you need that to be 6.5 by 10.5, and then wrap up your pieces of chipboard. To create the hinge for this album, you're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 10 by 8.25, and we're going to do lots of scoring. So place this where the long side of the cardstock is across the top. We're going to score at 1 inch, and that will be 1 inch on each end, and then a 1/2 inch in between those, okay? So 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, and 9. While we still have this flat, let's flip this over, and we're going to add adhesive to the 1 inch strips on each end of the paper. Now I happen to have 1 inch score tape from Country Craft Creations, and I really like using this and having it on hand. So I'm going to use that, but if you have smaller size adhesive, you know, go ahead and use that too. It all works. You just don't want to cover your score line. So I'll show you here in a moment. So I'm putting the adhesive right up to where the score line is. You don't want to go over that, okay? And then because this is 1 inch, when I don't put it up to the score line, The next thing we want to do is kind of a zigzag fold or a mountain valley fold. Let's see, I'll start by folding over on the first one. And then kind of go from there. So like every other one should be a mountain like that, okay? So when you're done, just give that a good pinching. And that is our hinge. What we're going to do is for these 1-inch areas, we're going to attach them to our chipboard covers. We'll take the 1 inch and we're going to come in and down from the edge of our chipboard about 1/8 of an inch on both sides. Now, if you want to be a little more exact, you could take a ruler and make a tick mark where the 1/8 is. It'll probably end up getting covered by the cardstock anyways. But that'll give you a nice general rule of where it will end up being. Okay, so I've removed the adhesive backing, and what I'm going to do is line up the score line here with the edge of my chipboard here. Again, coming in 1/8 of an inch from the top and in 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. Maybe I should put one down. And then the other side. Okay, just so that you can see there. Found it actually easier to do that. And then just burnish that down. If you can see your pencil mark at that point, you can just go ahead and erase it. Yep. So as long as these are lined up and smooth, the hinge is not coming over the edge of your chipboard, you're good. And as long as you have your spacing, you know, if it's not exactly 1/8 inch, it looks like I might have gone down just a smidge lower here than I did on this side. It's all going to be fine. No one is looking at it that closely. If they are, they've missed the whole point of it. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, so now we're going to attach the other side. I think I'll try to use the edge of my scoreboard and see if that will help. It will at least allow me to keep them level, right? Because we can pop over the middle part. We just need this area. So I'm going to try to put it in the same area that I have this one, And I'm going slightly under my pencil mark because that's how this one looks. So you just want to match them up. Yeah, I think that looks good. Check the back side, make sure nothing's coming up and over. And let's see. Look at that. Looks good. Awesome. And now just burnish. You know, just do your best on placement. I do think the little tick marks help a lot, so I would recommend doing that. I know not everyone likes to do things like that, but sometimes they're helpful. What you're going to need is 24 pieces of cardstock. I think that's how many I had. Yeah. And these are going to be like little photo mats, and they measure 4 1/8 by 2 5/8. Now, it does take some time to cut all of these out. I do have a Cricut file in case you want to use it. I don't know, you might want to. I have it all set up to where it cuts out 10 per page. So you would need to cut out 2 and then 4 on another page. So it takes about 3 12 by 12 cardstocks to cut out these little photo mats for our album. To make this part of the album, you needed 3 pieces of 12 by 12 cardstock. So it really doesn't take too much to create this. And when we come to the decorating, I used 2 8 by 8s, maybe some of another one. And then I also used the artisan cardstock, and I used maybe 2 pieces of artisan cardstock. So that should give you a good reference on how much of everything I used. And you'll be able to see and judge that as we go along in case I was wrong. But anyways, getting back to these, I put these into 3 little stacks of 8. So there are 8 little individual photo mats here. I'm just going to call them that. And what we're going to do is add them to our hinge. We're going to do that individually. We're going to start on the outside of our first mountain hinge. We'll add adhesive to the back side, and then we'll line it up to the edge of the hinge. We're going to line it up in front of the score line there. You want to keep that workable, right? So don't put it right into the score line like that. That's not good. You want to move it back away from the score line, maybe about 1/16 of an inch or less. It may be hard to see on this white cardstock, but you just want to make sure your hinge is still freely moving. And we're going to work our way across. So let me show you. I'm just going to add some adhesive here. Now you can use adhesive tape if you want, but I don't really want to waste my adhesive tape doing this. Okay. So I've got it at the edge of my hinge, and I'm going to line that up right before the score line. And I'm testing it out. Yep, everything's working good. And then I'm going to hold this up and burnish. Now we're going to take this piece and fold it back onto itself. So our mountain is there, see? We're going to take another one of our little mats, and we're going to glue it down to the next mountain. So we're gluing it down to the front part of our mountain. So here's our mountain. This is the front part. And what you end up doing is skipping every other one of these 1/2 inch little sections, right? So we add a photo mat here, we skip, we add a photo mat here, we skip, and so on. So I'm putting on here maybe 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 inch wide of adhesive. You can do a 1/2 an inch if you want to be exact, but you know, whatever works. Again, I'm just lining up my hinge, make sure it's lined up here and in front of the score line, so there's no impediments there. You also want to make sure that these are aligning and straight. And you can see that just by folding it back onto itself and then burnish. Burnishing is key in this project. So we'll flip this one up and over. See how nice and aligned those are? We're going to take our next photo mat and repeat. So the process is super easy, a lot of repetition. Here's my third one, lining it up to the edge. Making sure these are all in alignment. Okay, and then we just continue to repeat that process. We're going to do the same thing we're doing here down at the bottom as well. We're going to start on the outside and work our way in. Now, when we get these two areas done, we're going to work on the middle, but we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to take our photo mat and we're going to start on the outside down here. So our tail will be going in this direction, okay? So I'm probably going to speed through some of this since I've shown you how to do this in real time. I will probably stop when I do the middle just to kind of reiterate what I've been saying. Okay, so we did it that way. Let's try adding these, starting at the back and moving forward. It might be easier, but we're still going to put it on the front of the mountain, okay? And you can double check your work by just glancing over and seeing, you know, if you have a photo mat on that one. So I did it on the front of that one, matched up here. Every other one. I think it's easier this way. Skip, put one down. You know, and just make sure this is all smooth. Your photo mats aren't going over the hinge. That's key. I would definitely recommend doing it that way. It's so much easier than flipping it over on top of itself. Okay, now we have our two outside rows of photo mats on. What I'm going to do now is work on the center row of photo mats. When I designed this, I did it so that there would be 3/16 of an inch in between the photo mats. So right here is 3/16 of an inch, and right here is 3/16 of an inch. That way they won't run into each other and ruin the whole effect of this wonderful flag album. So what I'm going to do is just make a little tick mark for myself just to get this going in the right direction and that I'm not overlapping on the spacing. So if you want to do the same, I just suggest using your ruler, lining it up with the edge of this photo mat here, and then going in where the 3/16 mark is and making a little tick mark, and then coming down here, find your 3/16, line it up with the edge of this photo mat, and making a little marker there. And then we're going to just repeat the same steps that we were previously, adding our adhesive to the back of our photo mats and then placing our photo mat with the tail going in the left direction. So here our tails were going in the right direction, and we're just switching placement and direction. Again, you want to make sure it is above the score line. Now, I don't know if I want to be exact, but I at least want to get this first one going in a pretty good location. Yeah, I think that's good. And again, you can check it, make sure that there's no impediments there. And then we just continue on. So as you can see, our first one was on the upslope. This is on the downslope. So it would be here, skip, here, skip, here, skip, here, skip, and so on. Make a Skip to Malou song. Okay. Skipping and placing it down on the downslope. Now for this one, I'm definitely going to make sure that these are in alignment, and it's the best way to make sure you got it in the right spot. I'm going to flip this up just to make sure. Yep, that looks good. And I'll just continue from there. Skip and place. Definitely line these up back here, and then make sure you're not going over the score line here. I think that's the best way to do it. And you should end on the outside of this last part of the hinge. Now I'm going to let that dry a moment. Okay, everything is nice and dry, and I thought I would just kind of show you how to fold this up a bit. So I'm going to put my hands up underneath here, and I'm going to squeeze the hinge together. Okay, so just put your hands down on the sides, put the photo mats on top, and squeeze in. You want to keep it to where the hinge is close to the table, right? And then when you fold up the sides, you fold up the entire album. I'm just going to go in here and kind of burnish that a little bit, I think. Because it's going to get, you know, it's going to get fluffy. When we go to open this, we would then pull the two covers apart to get the effect. Now, the way that I initially created this was that the tails, most of the tails were going toward the right, the top and the bottom. And if you look at this, when we open it, the main thing moving is the center. But if we take and turn this around and try it again, then most of our movement comes from the top and the bottom. And I actually like that better. So I think I'm going to change the way I originally was going to do this. I don't know, I just like the sound of that more. From that would have been the original. Yeah, you just don't get the impact that I wanted. And I know the difference because there happened to be a black spot on this. So I know that was the back. I don't know, I just like that more. Plus, when you go to flip this, it's easier, if you're right-handed, to flip through the photos. If you are making this for someone who is left-handed, you may want to leave it this way, because then it would be easier for them to flip through this way, right? Just something to think about. Another thing to think about is because I use kind of a two-tone cardstock for my photo mats, as I mentioned, it was shimmery on one side. I didn't really think about the opposite side being kind of a matte finish. So you can definitely, you know, you see the difference. But it's okay, it's all good in the end, right? We're gonna put photos on this. This is what it's for photos. So anyways, I just wanted to point out some of those nuances. Once you get it all together, test it out, figure out what sound, what motion, what reaction you want. I mean, I like that, but I really like this. Get more of the flippy flips. Is it me? Yeah, yeah, you only get in the middle. Yeah, okay. That's the way I'm doing it. I'm sticking to it. So that's pretty easy to put together. Then you can cut out some pattern paper and put on top of the photo mats that we created here. I haven't decided exactly what I want to do for that yet. You can do every one, you could do every other, you could make some kind of design if you wanted to. For adding to the back sides, you don't have to add anything to the back sides. That way you have a photo on the front, photo here. I mean, can you imagine how many photos you can get in this one little album? Crazy. So it really all depends on what you want. Do you want to have some pattern pieces here and then just photos on the back side? Purely up to you. I think I do want to have some. I just haven't decided exactly what. Now that we have this all figured out, let's talk about the front and back covers and how we're going to decorate them. You're going to need 4 pieces of cardstock, and these will measure 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. I'm using these as a mat for the front and on the inside. Since I'm using the lighter weight chipboard, I wanted to go ahead and do kind of a double matting situation. I also used 2 pieces of pattern paper. I used this one and I cut it in half at 4. So then I have my 2 pieces. The left will be the front inside cover, and the right will be the back inside cover. And kind of the same thing for the actual outside of the cover. I used this piece, cut it in half at 4. The right is going to be my front cover, and the left is going to be the back cover. So that if it gets opened and someone looks at the back side, when you have these on here, it'll look like one seamless piece just cut in half, okay? It's just an aesthetic look there. So I'm going to set these aside till we work on the front cover. And we'll focus on the inside. Right now I'm just going to glue these 2 pieces down to each other. I created this with an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. Okay, so this is my front inside cover. This is my back inside cover, because when you put these together, that makes it complete, right? So we're just going to cut them and put them that way. Front, back. For the front inside cover, I use the punch. And this piece is 8 inches long. And the cardstock here is 1 inch. So if you remember, this comes down 1 1/4 inches. So you would really want this to be 2 1/4 inches to get the same width here. So this is going to be a side pocket. Just going to add adhesive here on the 2 sides and the back. Adding this to the right side of this piece. Then I cut a pattern piece, and this measures 7/8 by 8. And I'm gluing this all the way down. I'm going to add this to the back part of the piece I just put down. So there's really no 1/8 of an inch border all the way around this. It's just the look that I wanted. If you want that 1/8 of an inch, you're going to need to cut this down. So this is 7/8 by 8. So about 1/8 of an inch I left, so where you could see the cardstock under there. Where our pocket piece ended, that's where I aligned the pattern piece to. For the back inside cover, I actually found this in my little package of artisan cardstock, and so that's why I decided to end up using the punch. Now this only has about 1/4 of an inch of the cardstock showing here. So I thought, how can I use this? And I decided that I could add on a piece of pattern paper that measures 4 by 3 1/4. I can glue these 2 together and make a pocket. And again, I'm going to leave just the slightest bit of cardstock showing all the way across the bottom. You could line it up like this if you wanted, but I kind of like the look where there's some cardstock showing. I hope you see the difference. So here there's a little bit of the cardstock all the way across. If I cover it up, it would look like that. And you would just go straight into the embroidery. I don't really like that. I like it with just a little bit. So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and add these together, and then I'll make that into a pocket. I'm just putting that right on top of the pattern paper I already have down there. And normally I wouldn't put paper all the way down since we're not going to see it. But again, I want to continue to make sure that this is sturdy since I'm using the lightweight cardstock. And that will just make sure. Okay, now we can go ahead and place this down. It's going to be a little tricky, but there will be an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around it. It's easier if you just lift up the cover. Now the way that I created this is that where our hinges, remember we came down an 1/8 of an inch on each side, so this will be a nice guide to know where to place our pattern piece. We're going to place it right where our hinge starts and stops. Okay, let's put this one down. Again, I'm going to use the hinge as my guide to place this down. Now we can work on the front cover. Again, we have our 2 pieces here. I'm just gluing this onto here. Okay, so I've flattened out my album and I have this ready to add my pattern pieces. I've already matted these and they are ready to be adhered. But we don't want to just glue these down, which is actually what I started to do and stopped myself, because we want to add our ribbon. So what we need to do, or what I'm going to do, is, this is the one where I started to glue it down and realized, uh-oh. What I'm going to do is find the center. So you're going to have to figure out the width of your ribbon and then place a tick mark where there's still room on either side. I'll see if I can lift this up and show you. Here's 0. I'm going to flip this over. Here's my ribbon. So as you can see, I went to the next line on my ruler and placed my tick mark. And I did the same over here. That way there's a little bit of wiggle room beyond the size of my ribbon. So you go out to the next line on your ruler, or the next point. So for me, that's 3/8 inches. From 0, 3/8 inch on this side, 3/8 inch on this side. If you have 5/8 inch ribbon, which is what I believe this is. Pretty close. So let me fix this one. Okay, so I also went and made some tick marks here on my cover. going out 3/8 of an inch on each side. For the cover, it's 4 1/4 inches into the center. And I place them kind of on top because then when I put my pattern piece on, it'll just cover it up, right? Because you want to go ahead and lay down your ribbon across your album. You want to lay it down in between the 2 tick marks, or the 4 tick marks that we just made. It doesn't matter if you get the ribbon evenly on each side. That can be fixed later, if you understand what I mean. Like the tail end here, if this has more on this side than this side, it's okay, don't worry about it. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Just want that to be in there. There we go. All right, I'm going to start with the back first. Again, paying attention to my tick marks, not adding adhesive in that area. So I'm going to go below it. And go above this tick mark here. I guess I could have used tape for this. And I'm going to place this down and hope for the best. Look at there, look at there. Fabulous. So make sure you test that out before you start burnishing. It's tight enough, but it's still loose. This one I used a baby wipe to get the glue off, and it curled my whole page. But it will flatten out once I get it on there. Okay, anyhow, where's my marks? Right here. All is good. See, flatten that right out. Just burnish really good. I'm telling myself that. Not you guys. Since we're here, we'll go ahead and decorate the front cover. Now I've used that punch again to create 3 separate pieces. This is about 3/4 of an inch right here. So 3/4 plus the 1 1/4, right? And then that will give you the full size. So let's see, 3/4 plus 1 1/4 would be 2. So our pieces are 4 by 2, and you need 3 of those. And if my math is wrong, somebody please tell me. I'm going to be layering these on top of each other, almost as if they're ruffles. I just think that's so stinking cute. So I'm just going to kind of guess where I want them. I know I've been fairly exact the whole time, and now I'm guessing. I'm going to go up maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so. I do want some of the base pattern showing through. I think that looks good. I'm just going to glue that all the way down. So I did add some adhesive here and here to flatten those down, but I did leave this up. I may end up gluing that down later. We'll see how it goes. I don't want it to get stuck on anything, so that's why I glued down the sides. So on these pieces, this is 3/4 inches I mentioned earlier. I'm going to take my piece, and these are going to overlap. So at the end of the 3/4 inch before the embroidery part, that's where I'm going to overlap. So this is the piece that I have down. I'm going to take this piece where this solid cardstock ends and the embroidery begins. That's where I'm going to overlap this. Does that make sense? Where this begins, the embroidery begins, is where I'm going to put it here on top of this one, where it's solid. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. If you like a different look, you know, play around with it. See what kind of look you like, and then do that. Do whatever works for you. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing to your eye. And I'm repeating that on all 3 pieces. Wait a minute. On the last piece, I think I want this to be a bit of a pocket, so I'm going to add adhesive down the sides and then at the top of where my solid piece on this begins. So I'm not gonna put glue all the way through this, just here at the end. Because I was thinking about making it a pocket. We'll see how it works, you know. And I made sure when I punched out these pieces that they had a different color scheme going. Like this one was oranges and whites, and this one had the blue hints in it, and this one had more of the whites, because I wanted to pull, you know, the white cardstock into this somehow. So just be mindful of that as well, depending on the color scheme that you want. So you're going to need some pieces here. I'm using this from the 8x8, and it is cut down to 2 3/4 by 3 7/8. My white cardstock to mat it is 2 7/8 by 4. I think this was from the 8x8 as well. Yeah. So I cut this down to be 3 by 4. My mat is 3 1/8 by 4 1/8, and then I just put an eyelet in there with some seam binding from Country Craft Creations, and then I had some crochet thread that I tied around it. So these could be little photo mats, add writing, whatever you like on the back side. This is from the 8x8, I believe, and then this one is from the 12x12 collection. And I wanted to add these here. And then here's my flower from my stash to go like that somehow. Oh, that's cute right there. So that's the plan. So that's the cover. Now we can close this up, and you know, we want to get our accordion folded here, and then you just take your ribbons, and at this point you could make them even, right? And pull those through. So see, that's your closure. And then tie your pretty little bow. But then when you go to open this, it'll stretch back out and it'll still be attached. You won't lose it, right? And then you'll be able to close this up again. So that's how the closure works. Okay, now I wanted to go over some of the final touches that I've done to my mini album. Let's start by talking about the actual photo mats. So here is what it looks like. What I've done is taken a 12 by 12 sheet, and you don't have to do this. It's just what I preferred to do because I had both sizes, 8 by 8 and 12 by 12. So I took a large 12 by 12 sheet, this one with the florals. I put 3 pieces here, here, and here. And these measure 3 7/8 by 2 3/8. And I put that on the first one since you'll be seeing that one. For the rest of these, you would need about 2 or 3 12 by 12 sheets just to cover each outside of the photo mats with this size pattern paper. What I decided to do, since I wasn't sure, who this is going to, but I wanted them to have the option of being able to just add their photo right here on the front, because then you have a photo here on the front, you could have one on the back. I mean, so much real estate for photos in this. So what I did instead was I cut out 1 1/8 by 2 3/8 little rectangles, and then I glued them on to be like a little pocket. And when I glued them on, I used repositional adhesive. Here's the one I use. So that these can be removed, and then you can add your photo right onto the front of this. Really, you only need like a full pattern piece on the ones that show the full photo mat size. So that's what I've done throughout the entire project here. On the front though, the first 3 photo mats, I did add pattern paper to all 3 sizes. Only because when you first open it up, I just really wanted it to have a nice look and feel. So this is the same size. That was the 3 7/8 by 2 3/8. And we're in the 8ths because I sized this to fit the 8 by 8. So that's why that all worked out that way. Now these two, we actually adhered them on the down slope of the mountain, right? So you're only going to need mats that are 3 3/8 by 2 3/8. You do not want to use this same size and cover the photo mat starting here. It does something to the mechanism and it won't open properly. So you need to have this smaller size. So when you go to add photos to the back side, make sure you use the smaller size that I just gave you. And for the fronts, use the larger size. Okay? So that's how you can cover all your wonderful photo mats here. Another thing that I wanted to do in here is to add an image to my pocket. So I cut this one. This is a 3 by 3 about. Cut it down just a little bit. And I may have gotten this from the 12 by 12 as well. I'm not sure. I kind of mixed my 2 collections together. But I want that to be here on the front. And another way to use this gorgeous punch is I went along the edge here. You see where it kind of does this little loop, loop, loop. I cut all along that to cut off just the top little loops. It's all about the loops right now. So here it is. Okay. So I cut right at the edge to be able to cut this piece out. So here it is on the actual piece I cut out. Just to give you an idea. Because I wanted to use this kind of as a decorative piece on the edge. And when I did this, it almost looked as if there were wings behind this little girl. I don't know. That's just what it looked like to me. And I just absolutely love that. So it also mirrors the full, decorative punch that I used there. But I was trying to give you another way to use this is to actually cut out some of the pieces and use them like that. You don't have to use the full punch as is. So I'm going to go ahead and add this onto the front of my pocket here. And another thing I thought about was making this a tuck spot. So you could tuck something down in there if you wanted to. That's just my favorite image. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to use the little tape trick and cover up the part that we just added. So this way nothing will snag on it. I just realized I didn't put any glue underneath this part of it. So maybe I'll do that. There, just a little bit. So for this pocket, I created a tag to go in it. I wanted a long tag. I'm trying to pull out the whites so that it goes better with the base color that I've used. So this tag measures 3 1/4, and when I started out, it measured 7.5 inches long. I did my punch on the edge, and then now it made it closer to 7 3/8. On the back, I added pattern paper to it just to carry through the theme. And then I added a strip of the burgundy cardstock here. This is 1/4 of an inch tall by 3 1/4 wide. And then I made this little element here at the top of the tag. I just kind of wanted to pull everything together, and that just really did it. And then, of course, I used my burgundy seam binding from Country Craft Creations, and then some crochet thread I had in my stash. So this is just going to go right in here. I love the size of that. For the front pocket, so here's the tag. It's like a tag booklet that I created for the front pocket. And as you can see, this opens up here. I did kind of fussy cut out this image because I used part of it to go behind this image that I use, and this image was from the 12 by 12. I'm not certain if this is 12 by 12 or 8 by 8. Sorry about that. It was a scrap and I just grabbed it and used it. So I layered those on top of each other. Another adorable image. And then inside, I wanted to kind of carry this in. So I fussy cut that out, made it a side little tuck, and created this skinny pocket. This is 2 inches wide. And I have a punch that does this kind of decorative edge here. This is 6 inches long, but it could be longer, really, whatever size you want to fit in there. And I didn't put any thread in there because I thought it looked fine just like that. But there's plenty of room here to journal. You can add photos on the back side of it. I really just like how that little booklet turned out. And if you want, you could have the tag part on the front and then have the booklet open this way. I just needed to reverse my cardstock, and I didn't do that. So this is why mine opens the way that it does. But you can certainly have yours open like this. Okay, and I kind of actually like this because then you really know that you need to open it. But this fits right in here. It is a little trickier to get your items in the pocket when we have those beautiful lace borders on our pockets. So just keep that in mind. And that really is everything. So I hope you like this design and will give it a try. It's just really so much fun, and there's so much room for photos in here. It's unbelievable. I just love having the little extra pockets on the end. Just a really nice, fun gift. And then of course, we pull these out to close it up, and then we can tie it on up. So if you create one of these, please tag me at Jacqs. I can repost your photos or recognize them on Instagram and Facebook. Post them in Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations Facebook group if you're a member there. And if you're not, you may want to consider it. Lots of free tutorials there, and I'll have that link down below for you. But yeah, I hope that you like this. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And don't forget your free Cricut file link so that you can recreate this project. And I'll see you next time.